we'll go ahead and get started. We don't want to keep everybody waiting. Thank you for everybody joining today. Again, we have a small group, but that's fine. That's great. And so we'll hopefully answer all your questions that you may have. And so I just want to introduce myself. My name is Chris Burkhardt. I'm the Executive Director of the Board of Licensing Contractors. I've been around for just about a year and a half in this program, and so I'm delighted to be here, and I'm learning every day different things about this program. And so with me, I have my administrative manager, Janine Miller, that you see on camera as well, and then also we have Kathy Holloman in the background, kind of monitoring the chat. If they get any hard questions, they'll be happy to support me here. So we'll do. I got a kind of a short presentation to go through, and then I will kick it over to Janine to kind of go through some of the process and some of the documentation required for licensure. And so, and at that point, we'll open it up for questions and things like that. So, but if you have a question, type it in the chat. That way, we can prepare for it and answer it either on camera here or in the background with Kathy providing some comments in the chat as well. So that's kind of how we'll go through it, and we'll stay on, answer as many questions as we can, and so. But we also don't want to waste anybody's time today, so we'll kind of play it by ear how long this goes. But again, appreciate everybody being here. So we'll go on to the next slide. Just want to kind of show where we sit in relation to other programs that are regulated in the state. We sit in the Department of Commerce and Insurance on the Division of Regulatory Board side. And you see here in this Hollywood Squares all the different things that the state regulates for licensure. And then, in fact, I think they're adding one more coming up here real soon with the bail bondsman a board that's coming online. But you can see where we're kind of nestled in with accountancy, architects, engineers, the athletic commission, barbers and cosmetology, and things like that. So we just have there's a wide smattering of different things that are regulated across the board, and this the board of the contracting industry is one of those as well. Next slide. I just want to kind of show the mission here of why we exist. We've been around for nearly 100 years. Since 1931, the board has been around, and this board really kind of helps both the industry and the consumers. And so we want to make sure that they're to basically, you can read here. I'm not going to read everything, but but to ensure quality and fair construction practices across the industry. So we're holding contractors accountable to perform quality work and to do what they're supposed to do when they say they're supposed to with the public. And the public can come to us and express their concerns and things like that, and work with the industry to make sure everything is fair and equitable across the board. We do have, it's like I said, we've been around since 1931, and we still have one. Our oldest active license has been active since 1934, license number 2, and so the licenses open up and they stay open for quite a while, and so we've been, again, I've been around for quite a while. You can see there at the bottom. We'll get into this more, but our kind of a threshold number that we talk about is the $25,000 mark. There's licenses for above $25,000, and there's also some specialty licenses below $25,000 that we'll talk about. All right, next slide. So who we are. We're a board that's been appointed by the governor. It's made up of 9 board members across the state, and they serve 7-year terms. They can serve more than one term as well. We have 3 from East Tennessee, 3 from Middle Tennessee, and 3 from West Tennessee, and they serve in all the different disciplines across the board, from electrical to commercial to residential to plumbing to highway, and we also have 1 board member that serves as the general public. And so we meet every other month. We just met last week, and then we'll meet again in November. And so that's kind of our frequency as we meet January, March, May, July, September, and November. And we go through, we have a board meetings, and those are open to the public. You can come in person, or you can join online like you're doing here today, and hear what goes on in those board meetings. We also have a staff of 11 that includes me that work day-to-day operations for issuing out licenses, going through the applications, answering questions from both the contractors, potential contractors, licensed contractors, the public. Work those day to day, answering those questions. And we also have the support staff that work with us, the legal office, the complaints office, and we have a call center as well that serves not only just our board, but all of those other boards that you saw there on a couple slides ago. The licenses that we administer are the general contractor license. That's anything $25,000 and up. We have a home improvement license that is adopted in nine counties across the state, and we'll go into more of that detail a little bit later. But there's a home improvement license for residential projects that range from $3,000 to just below $25,000 in those 9 counties. And we also have a limited license electrician for less than $25,000, as well as plumbers, limited license plumbers for under $25,000. So those are the 4 types of licenses that we administer across the state. And you can go to the next slide. So the big question is, who is required to be licensed? And so again, a contractor's license is required before you even enter into negotiating, bidding, or anything for any project that's over $25,000 or more. And when you're acting as one of these following sub bullets here. So a prime contractor, you're contracting directly with the owner of the project. So if there's a project out there that's over $25,000, you're engaging with the project owner, you are considered a prime contractor. A subcontractor is anybody that works for that prime contractor. And then it depends. Sometimes it depends whether or not you need to be licensed. And so you can see down there in our little smaller sub bullets in the trades or disciplines of electrical, mechanical, plumbing, HVAC, and roofing, and in masonry. Even though you're a subcontractor, you will have to be licensed if you're one of those different types of subcontractors. Sometimes there's misnomers about working for a project owner, or specifically for residential construction. If you are working directly for a homeowner, that there is an exemption out there for homeowners that can act as their own quote unquote contractor when building their own primary residence. But as soon as they reach out and hire one of you as a contractor, you become a prime contractor, and you must be licensed. And so sometimes there's issues out there that a contractor will contact us, or will get notified that they're operating without a license. They'll say that they're a subcontractor to the homeowner. That's not true. That's not the case. If a homeowner is using that exemption, that does not negate you from being licensed as a contractor. And so if there's any questions about that, we're happy to talk about it. But that's kind of one of the major issues that we see with complaints with unlicensed contracting that goes on across the state. All right, and then we'll go to the next slide. These are the major classifications when I talk about a project that's over $25,000 is a general contractor. In the state of Tennessee, we classify a general contractor based off monetary limit. So again, anything over $25,000, you can be an electrical contractor, but we're still going to call you, for our terminology in the state of Tennessee, you are still a general contractor. We have so these are our subcategories of general contracting. We have the building construction, You have masonry. We have specialty codes. We also have the heavy construction, highway, municipalities, and then the CMC and is the mechanical plumbing aspect, and then CE is the electrical contracting. And so as a general contractor, you can have multiple of these different classifications added to your license. You could be a electrical contractor as well as a building contractor, but you can have both of those classifications on one license here in this state. That may be a little bit different in some other states around. Sometimes that we get mixed up in terminology when we have people coming from one state to into Tennessee. We have subcategories as well, specifically in the BC and the building construction category, where you may not need to be licensed. Again, if you are acting as a subcontractor to a prime contractor, and you are a concrete person or you are a drywall person only, it just depends. We have subcategories within that BC classification that you can be licensed. Again, it just depends on who you are dealing with, whether you are considered a prime contractor or a subcontractor, whether or not you need to be licensed. And so, any questions on those? All right, go to the next slide. Just want to highlight, we do oversee, I won't say we oversee, we do have statute and rule about bidding. Again, you need to be licensed before you even bid on a project. And so if you're looking to bid on a project as a prime or even a subcontractor, just again, a special stipulations. If you're an electrician, you're a plumber, you're a roofer, or a masonry, you still need to be licensed, even if you are a subcontractor and you're bidding on either a county job or state job or any type of job in general. There are rules in place to conduct proper bidding procedures. And so I just want to highlight, though, this is an eye chart. I'm not going to read through it all, but there is structure in place. There are statutes in place to properly conduct bidding across the state on projects. If there's any questions on this, we'd be happy to talk about those as well. All right, we'll go to the next slide. We have reciprocity agreements with several states around us. What reciprocity means for us specifically, and it means to most states in general, is a trade exam waiver. And so, for example, if you are a licensed contractor in Alabama for electrical, let's say, you've taken the Alabama exam to be licensed there, we are able to accept that exam from Alabama to be included into your Tennessee license application. It does not mean a straight reciprocity that you're licensed in Alabama, you're automatically licensed in Tennessee. No, you still have to go through our application process, and so that also includes still having to take the Tennessee Business and Law exam, and we can go over that a little bit later as well. But these are specifically trade exams, and so you still have to provide verification that you've taken, working with the Alabama board as well. For example, I was usually continuing this example. Provide your exam verification. You provide and there's a whole list here that we'll go through the different things that you need for application. But the biggest things are your exam scores or verifications for waiver, your financial document, and then your certificate of insurance. And there's a whole lot of things that go into the application process. But again, we like to have different companies come in from different states, and they're coming in all the time. But this is a way to reduce the amount of exams that are being taken across the board. And so that will help ease the burden a little bit to become licensed in Tennessee. I also want to highlight there right at the bottom, or NASCLA, the National Association of State state contracting licensing agencies. The NASCLA exam is a more or less a national exam that we subscribe to, that we will allow as well for commercial building and electrical exam. So if you've taken the NASCLA commercial or the NASCLA electrical exam, we'll accept that as well, and you can use that in pretty much a majority of the states have signed up to accept those NASCLA exams. I know that they're starting out to work on a plumbing exam as well, so that hopefully that will come in the future as a national exam that you can take. Otherwise, our exams are also administered through PSI, and so if you're looking to take specifically the Tennessee, residential exam, you'll have to get signed up through PSI to take those exams, and we can talk more about those later. All right, going to the next slide. And whether you are an applicant looking to get licensed with this board, or you're part of the general public, you can come to this page here and you can verify whether or not, from the public's perspective, they can verify if you are a licensed contractor or not through this website. You can also come in as an applicant as well and use this website to see the status of things of your application that gets submitted through this website. And we're strongly pushing to submit all of your applications here online. It's the fastest way to get through the process. And so, again, there's a bunch of links here that we have. Again, these things are going to be available to you on our website, so you can go back and click them at your own pace and time. So we'll go to the next slide. I'll go over this real briefly, but then I'll go and turn it over to Janine to kind of go through some of the finer details of this process. But this is the process to get licensed as a general contractor here in Tennessee. And so we kind of say the first two steps are the kind of the longest poles in the tent. You need to sign up and get registered and take the exams and have those taken and passed, as well as getting a financial statement prepared. Those are two of the longest things that take the longest to get through. And in my small experience here, I want to just quickly touch on a financial statement. Again, anything over $25,000, you got to be licensed as the contractor, and so we base your license off a monetary limit. And so it's the monetary limit that you can sustain as a business. It also shows the amount, also ties into the previous work, your experience that you've already done. Those two things tie together, and the board assigns you a monetary limit. Now, this monetary limit, in order to get a monetary limit, you got to have a financial statement that's prepared by a properly licensed CPA that's peer reviewed. And so depending on if you're looking for a monetary limit of $3 million and below, a reviewed financial statement is acceptable. But if you're looking to go unlimited right off the bat, you'll need an audited financial statement. And so with that, I will turn it over to Janine to kind of go through some of the finer details in this process.
Good morning. My name is Janine Miller, and we're going to go over the actual application packet. So let me, I'm hoping that this works. Can you see the resources? Yeah, okay, we're good. So I'm going to go over in detail all the different forms, requirements that we need for the contractor application packet. We found this to be very valuable for people trying to apply for a contractor's license. So you know exactly what we need, who needs to fill out what are the minimum requirements that we're looking for, insurance requirements, answers about the financials, what to do, what not to do. So I'm going to go over that in detail. And if you have questions, please be sure that you ask them either in chat or raise your hand, and I'll be happy to go over anything any questions you may have. So I did put this in the link. It's the contractor application resource packet. You can download it at any time on our website. And this resource packet has all the forms that you're going to need to have filled out prior and upload to your application, if applicable. The first form that we're going to go over is your experience. Okay. This is the big one. This is one of the main reasons that will hold up a contractor license application is experience. So if you are applying for multiple classifications, let's just say that you're applying for a residential license, which is a BC-A, and you're also applying for an electrical license, which is the CE classification, which is the certified electrician classification. If you have two classifications, they're going to need to see experience in both of those areas. And if you want the full residential classification, the board does require for them to see minimum ground up experience, new construction for residential properties, at least 4. Okay. They want to see 4 projects, 4 residential projects, preferably ground up if you want the full BC. That also applies for the commercial, the industrial. If you want a full BC, you have to at least put 4 minimum projects. And what counts as experience is it could be you were an employee with a contractor, you were a subcontractor, if you're contracting in another state, or even if you had a home improvement license and you're upgrading to become a contractor, any experience in like a joint venture or a subcontractor will count. It is important that you look at, let me make it bigger. A lot of people will say that they were an employee of a contractor and not put down the license number. This is important if you were an employee of a contractor in Tennessee. If it was out of state, you can write, that license number or, where the project was performed. So it is very important, and a lot of people miss this, and this is what is going to hold up your application if we don't have it. So if you have 2 classifications, make sure that you are providing experience for both of those classifications. If you're doing 3 classifications, make sure that you have experience for all 3 of those classifications. If you're going to have multiple, at least you can not do 4, you can do 3 projects of each classification, and you can fill it out on this form and upload it, or you can fill it out online. You can keep adding lines of experience on the online application and just type it out online, or you can use this paper version, whichever is best for you. And the experience can come from anyone that is going to be an owner, officer, or the QA of your license. Okay, so experience is big. We need to know, the customer name, the contract amount, the full project amount, the scope of work performed, type of project, where, the city, date. Some people just put like an address, like a name in a street or a number in a street. We need to know city and state. Okay. So if it's not filled out, we're going to kick it back. I'm stressing this because this is one of the biggest holdups of your license, is an incomplete experience sheet. Also, I'm trying to think. I feel like I'm forgetting something about the experience sheet. I think that's really it. Does anybody have experience or questions about the experience sheet? You can go ahead and unmute, Kelman.
Yes. So I'm in, in a position where none of the requirements that you've laid out match my experience. And so I've been an owner developer, i.e., I've been acquiring infill lots in Green Hills, Forest Hills, uh, 12 South Belmont, right? I've been acquiring lots, funding the lot, designing the plan with architects, demolishing a house, and then partnering with the general contractor, not as an employee, not as a subcontractor, and not as the general contractor to build homes. And so over the last 7 years, probably built, I mean, I built 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 homes in the last in that thing. And so now I'm applying for my license, right? And I did every house with the exact contract with the same contractor. Okay. So through that period of time, right, I've kind of opened up the trade relationships with Pella and Stewart Lumber and the folks that provide all the inputs and getting the labor trade contractors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so what I'm having difficulty really trying to understand is how do I represent that experience?
It sounds like you're more of an engineer project manager, yeah? Like your project manager or construction management, yeah. That counts. Because that experience would count because project managers or construction management is required to be licensed. So that experience would count. So you would list that experience and the contractor that you worked with that you partnered with for this, make sure that you list them in the project and say that I would actually count that as like an employee of a contractor. I would count that as an employee of a contractor and you were doing like project management, construction management. So I would list it that way and that experience would count.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm just accurately representing on the actual application.
Yeah, just make sure that you put the contractor that you were doing this for is that license is listed.
Yep.
Okay. And then the project amounts for that. So that would count. What will not count though, let me add this note. If you only have experience on your own property, like, I built my own house or I built my own deck or my brother's deck, they will not count that as experience. So, they won't count your personal property as experience. But Kellerman, what you're talking about would count as construction management for that contractor company. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions regarding experience? I'm going to move on to the next form. This needs to be filled out. This is the contractor's affidavit. This needs to be filled out and notarized before you submit your online application. Here you have to select what your mode of operation is going to be. However you decide to organize your business, the name of the business entity. It says here in small print, however it's going to appear on the license, however you want the license name, your entity name, your organization name needs to be here. You have to answer these questions. Have you, been convicted of a felony? Have you had a bankruptcy? Have you offered to engage or bid on projects over 25,000? And I'm going to stress that this is very important that you answer this honestly, because if you answer no and you did, it gets reported to us and then that's not going to be good. So make sure that you answer this honestly about bidding or contracting with or without a license. And then you'll need to print and sign here. And anyone that is a owner, a qualifying agent, a partner, major officers, or controlling stockholders of this organization that you're applying for this license, they all have to sign it. Now, if some people have, CEOs like in a different state or out of the country even, We can take and accept digital signatures, but they will have to be notarized. And we can also accept different, two or three forms if it's not all on one form, but they do all need to be notarized. This is a requirement for your application. Any questions on this form? It's pretty straightforward.
Hey, Jenny, just to emphasize, when you go back to the business entity name, they all have to match everywhere, and specifically with what you register your business as with the Secretary of State is what we're going to be matching primarily it with.
Yeah, everything has to match on the application. So however you submit your application, it has to be in the organization name. And everything that you submit, your insurance, your financial statement, your affidavit, everything has to be in the same name as it's going to be licensed. That's very important. All right. Letter of reference. We need letters of reference from someone that you've contracted with, or an employee or a contractor that you were a subcontractor for, or it could be also an individual that you built a home for or did remodeling for, etc. So this needs to be filled out. Okay, this is a letter of reference. They can submit their own generated letter of reference. We will also accept that. We need minimum at least one. Okay, we don't need a whole bunch of these. We just need minimum one. And then they need to sign in date. So we need at least one letter of reference. Any questions on this? I'm going to move on. This is for a qualifying agent, power of attorney. So this is only needed if you are going to have a qualifying agent on your license. And the qualifying agent is the person that took the trade exam, that holds the experience for the classifications that you are going to have on your license. The board sees your qualifying agents as a full-time employee, owner, officer that is the qualified person to oversee those projects for that classification. So if they do not have ownership of the license, less than 30%, you have to have this filled out. So even if they have a 10% ownership, they would have to fill out the power of attorney, or if they have no ownership, they still have to fill out the power of attorney in order to be a qualifying agent for your license. Now, if you have someone that has more than 30% ownership, you do not need to fill this out. We don't need this form, and they're a qualifying agent. So this form is only needed if you have a qualifier that doesn't have ownership in the license or less than 30%. This also needs to be notarized. Okay. Any questions on the affidavit, the power of attorney? So this is only needed, again, if you have a qualifying agent that does not have majority ownership, and this is not needed otherwise. This is if you are trying to apply by reciprocity for a trade exam waiver. So say you took the trade exam in Mississippi and you are trying to reciprocate that in Tennessee. We need the state that you took the trade exam in to fill this form out. You fill out the top and you send it to them, and they will fill out the bottom. So the state where you took the trade exam will fill this part out, and they put the state seal. And this is what would waive your trade exam. We do not waive the state business and law because it is state specific. So that is not reciprocal, but the trade exams are. And I do have, I think I did post the trade exam waiver agreement in the chat there. So you can look on the trade exam waiver agreement if you did take a trade exam in another state to see what we do take or what we do reciprocate. Any question, and this is what you would submit. Sorry, I should say this. This is what you would submit on your application under the trade exam in lieu of the PSI test score would be this page. Any questions on the license verification page? So we're going to talk about the workman's comp requirements, insurance requirements. Insurance is also another thing that will hold up your contractor license. So I'm going to go over the workman's comp portion first. This is just a workman's comp questionnaire. These questions are online. So if you're filling out the online application, you do not need to submit this page, but this kind of breaks it down for you so you understand it a little bit better. And this will tell you what is required for your business entity with workman's comp, okay? And I will go over it right now. So if you have more than 5 employees or officers of the license, you need workman's comp insurance. There is no exception. You do have to have the workman's comp insurance, okay? If you have less than 5 employees, let's say there's 3 employees. It's you, an owner, and another owner, and a qualifying agent, and that's it. And you subcontract to other people. Then what you need is you either need to have proof of workman's comp insurance or the workman's comp exemption, which you register with the Department of Labor, okay? But every individual that you have on the license, the owners and say the qualifying agent also needs to register for the workman's comp exemption, okay? So every individual that is affiliated needs to register, and we will not go forward with your application until we see that. So it's either proof of workman's comp insurance or the workman's comp exemption registration, okay? The other option is if it's just you working, let's say you're a construction project manager and you subcontract everything out and you have no employees, even that's the same thing. You would either need to get the workman's comp exemption registration or proof of workman's comp insurance if you are using subcontractors. So if you plan on using subcontractors, and it's just you, it still has to be one of the two. Okay, it has to be exemption registration or proof. The only thing that will exempt you completely from workman's comp, there's a rule called the handyman exemption. And that is if you are a sole proprietor, you have no employees, you do not hire subcontractors, and you contract directly with the property owner, then you qualify for the handyman exemption, where you don't need to show proof of workman's comp and you don't need to show proof of the workman's comp exemption. Okay, that is the only way that you would be exempt. And it's very rare to see that with contractor licenses. So, if you say that it's just you and you have no employees and you don't hire subcontractors and you do contract with the owner directly, but yet you're putting down that you're building houses worth $3 million by yourself, we're going to question that, because that's, impressive if you can do all of that by yourself without hiring a subcontractor. So just make sure that you're truthful about that, and make sure that you have either the exemption, the proof of insurance, the exemption for everybody if there's more than one person on your license, or if it is the handyman exemption. Those are usually more common in the home improvement licenses. Any questions specifically on workman's comp? This questionnaire will help you, if you answer it, it'll tell you if you need it or not. but that resource is here. I don't think it did. Okay, it doesn't go over the general contractor insurance. So I'm going to pull that over here. This form is also on our website. The minimum requirements for the general contractor insurance, everyone has to have this. Every contractor license, home improvement licenses need it. It tells you here, what licensees need it. And then here, contractor's license, based on your monetary limit that you're going to be requesting, is the minimum general liability insurance coverage that you're going to need. So if you have a monetary limit up to $500,000, we need to see that you have at least minimum $100,000 coverage. And you need to have 5 policies. So minimum 5 policies. And that is also explained on this sheet. The most common insurance that contractors get is usually just a 2 million general limit. That's the most common that we see. But if for some reason you have, you don't want to do 2 million, you just want to do 1 million, we will still accept it, just as long as it meets the minimum of these requirements. And Kathy linked it for you in chat. So if you need a copy of that insurance document, you can take it. So that is the limit that you need. Otherwise, if you don't have the proper limit, we will reject it. The other thing that we need is we need 5 policy limits. The 5 policy limits, you'll see on your certificate of insurance what those limits are, and you'll have to discuss with your insurance companies what limits you want, but we need a minimum of 5. If you only have 4, we're going to kick it back. Okay. The other thing is we need a certificate of insurance to show that you're active and you have the proper coverage, and you need to list the board as the license holder. That is also one of the biggest holdups of a contractor application, is if we do not have the proper certificate of insurance and the board is not listed as the certificate holder. So make sure that you are working with your insurance agents. Let them know that you need 5 policy limits, what your limit is going to be for the general, and make sure that the board is listed as the policy holder. Or not policy holder, certificate holder, sorry. Certificate holder. Yes. Hillman. You can go ahead and unmute.
Oh, sorry about that. I heard you use the word you need 5 insurances, and I'm trying to
5 insurance policies. So let me pull one up as an example. Give me a minute here. Just I'm seeing if the sample will show for me. Okay. Hopefully this will work. Okay, so if you look here, in this box, it has 6 limits there. Let me see. I wonder if I can you see it? So this little box has the 5 policy limits that we're talking about.
Got it. I got it. Okay. Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about. Okay.
Yep.
Does that make sense? So yeah, so we need to see the active dates. Here we would see however you're going to be licensed. So as your name is Killiman Builders, it needs to say Killiman Builders here, and it needs to have the address, the policy number, the active dates. At minimum 5, with the general limit needs to be at least you know, the
Mhm.
1 million, minimum, but they usually just do 2 million. I see that that's most common. 2 million here. And then make sure down here at the bottom, they'll have a certificate holder. This example doesn't have it, but at the bottom, we'll have a certificate holder, and that needs to say Tennessee Board of Licensing Contractors with our address. Okay. I'll get a better example next time. We're going to put an example of this on our website this winter, so there will be examples online. Thank you, Chris. So, yeah, Chris posted an example there. I can't show somebody else's, stuff, but we'll get a dummy one to share next time. Any more questions about insurance? The next form, this is your eligibility verification, meaning that can you work legally in the United States? If they ask these questions online, so this is not needed. However, if you are submitting a paper form, this will need to be filled out. And if you are a sole proprietor, we need a copy of your driver's license, etc. Or if you're doing an online application, we do not need this because you attest for this online, okay? So this form is only needed if you are applying by paper. Just saying that you are. Now, if you are a qualified alien from, allowed to work in the United States, we need 2 forms of ID, okay? So if, let's say you moved here from England and you can legally work in the United States, we just need to see that, like your work visa and a copy of your driver's license or social. Here's all the different materials that you would need to submit for that. Now, we're going to talk about your financial statement, okay? Chris talked about finding a CPA. You do need to have for your initial license, also for your monetary, if you ever want to increase your monetary limit on your license in the future, it'll be the same thing. Ownership change, same thing. We would need a reviewed or audited financial statement, okay? Your financial statement needs to show that you have 10% in your net worth and your working capital to support the monetary limit that you are applying for. So, for example, if you are applying for $1 million monetary limit, you need to show that you have a minimum of $100,000 in both your working capital and your net worth. Okay. And the most common thing that we see with new contractor applications is they'll start up a new business entity and they'll go open a bank account and put $1,000 or $100,000 cash in there and list no hard assets, like no tools, no brick and mortar building, no trucks, no titles in the entity name. And if we don't have those hard assets and it's cash only, we're going to send a letter, okay? Because cash only is recognized as it's there one day and it could be gone the next. We need to see some kind of hard asset. So if you have, you don't show that on your review, your CPA review, because you don't have any titles or tools or buildings or anything, you're going to have to submit a personal financial statement with a personal guarantee. And we don't recommend that. Nobody wants to put their personal property or financials on the line of their new business entity. So just make sure that you, it would be advisable before getting your review to have some kind of hard assets in place before getting that CPA review or audit. Otherwise, be prepared and you can submit it with your application ahead of time if you know you need to do that, to submit a personal financial statement with a guarantee agreement. If you want to do that just for the initial application, you can, and you can change it with an updated financial statement in the future either while you're currently active or during your renewal process. Your renewal process, you can a financial statement is required for every renewal biannually. And if you have a monetary limit that is less than 1.5 million, you could submit just a balance sheet. You don't need to go through a CPA again. You can just submit a balance sheet for your business entity. But if you do have a monetary limit that is higher than 1.5 million, you need to submit minimum a CPA compilation report with that. So keep that in mind for your renewals, and then you can update it then if you have hard assets, or if it's still cash only. If it's always just going to be cash only, you're going to need to submit supplemental information. We do have that information on the packet, and then also I have it pulled up here of financial resources. Let me put it over here so you can see of what you need to do. Okay, so if you are deficient in your working capital, or let's say you want an unlimited monetary limit, which is going to be, if you want unlimited because you're going to do multi-million-dollar projects, you can apply for that, but what you need to show is minimum $300,000 in both your net worth and your working capital. Okay, so in that, let's just say, for example, you only have 200,000 in your working capital and you got 500,000 in your net worth. You're short in your working capital. You can make that up with different amenities, like the personal financial statement, but you could also use a line of credit from a bank. And if you decide to do that, it needs to be in our format. Kathy, yeah, oh, perfect. She did it for you already. So there you will see in the resource packet that Kathy just linked has the forms that you need if you know that you have a cash only and you're going to have to do a personal financial statement and guarantee agreement. If you do this ahead of time, your application is going to go through probably as quick as a week if we have everything we need. If not, be prepared to get a letter of us asking for either a personal financial statement with a guarantee or a line of credit. And we'll need that. And in that packet, this is what the personal financial statement is. Your personal financial statement does not need to be filled out by a CPA. You can fill it out yourself, your name, your residence, date, and then tell us, you know, this information here. And then you'll have to sign it. Okay, sign in date. If there's multiple owners and both owners want to submit, you can do that. Or, you know, if it's a married couple, you got the husband and wife, sign it with your personal assets. And then what has to go with that is the guarantee agreement. So let's say that you need a guarantee agreement of $100,000. You'll need to fill that out. And this is one of the common mistakes. Make sure that it's going to be the name as the license. So I'm going to use Killiman Builders as an example because that's what I see. So even if it was, you know, Mr. Killiman filling this out, he would still put the name on the license here, the personal guarantee agreement of $100,000, and then make sure that you check the appropriate box. Okay, personal agreement, or is it going to be a corporate guarantee agreement? Now, this is one that is also common. Say that you have a corporate financial statement you're going to use, and you're a subsidiary of that corporation, and you're using their financial statement. You can do that. Just make sure that you get a corporate guarantee from the corporation, and they have to sign it. Okay, you can use their financial statement if you are a subsidiary of that company, but we will need the corporate guarantee agreement, and we will need an in-house balance sheet. So that is another thing that we will send letters out for, is if you submit a corporate and your in-house balance sheet is not in that audit that comes with those, we'll ask for that. So be prepared. So just make sure you know the difference of the corporate guarantee or the personal guarantee. And then this needs to be notarized. Okay. And then we also need the notice of liability guarantee agreement. This has to be filled out and submitted with it. So these 3 pages are required, and this also has to be notarized. So just make sure that if you are submitting a personal financial statement, this has to go with it, these 3 pages with the personal guarantee agreement. And they do have to be notarized, and they do have to be the correct amount and the right name. So discuss this with your CPAs. If you have not done this yet and you're preparing to submit your application, make sure that if you do have a cash only financial statement, show this to your CPA and they'll help you get this filled out in advance, or you can wait for us to send the letter so you know what the amount is. But your CPA should know exactly what you need to fill out. And this will, if you have this ahead of time when you submit your application, compiled in one document, it will go through very quickly. This is the line of credit subsidiary. So if you are short in your working capital, this can help add to your working capital. A line of credit will not be counted towards your net worth. This only works as a current asset, and it has to be in the board format. So we do submit this letters back. We will not submit this if it's not in the board format. And what that means is it has to report to the state of Tennessee Board for Licensing Contractors. If there's a change in your line of credit or if it's canceled, et cetera, we need to know. And it has to have, they have to let us know. That way we can reach out to you and be like, we need something. Or else, it could cause your license to go inactive until it's rectified. So if you are going to use a line of credit, it does have to be in this format, and that's something that you need to discuss with your bank or creditor provider. And the bond, the contractor license bond. This is used a lot. This can go towards your net worth. This is something that a lot of corporations will just submit a bond in lieu of a corporate guarantee agreement. Okay, so you can do that if you're a subsidiary of a large corporation, and the bond does come into increments. It's either 500,000 or $1 million, and that's going to be based on your monetary limit of what bond you need. So for unlimited licenses, it has to be $1 million bond. Anything under the unlimited, it can be 500,000. But just make sure that if you are going through the bond, this has to be on this form. And this also needs, you have to attach the power of attorney. This all needs to be filled in from the insurance. And this can also be used in lieu of a corporate guarantee agreement, the contractor license bond. Okay. So I kind of went in detail this, and all of these also apply to your renewals as well, your renewals. So if you are short in a renewal financial, all of these amenities you can use to make up if you are deficient in one way or another. Okay. Any questions on the bonds, the lines of credit, the personal or corporate financial statements?
Yes, one question. So
Sure.
if what you describe is correct, then why do it at all? And why not just go to the straight personal guarantee? And if I'm going to go for a $2 million limit, right? If I just provided just a personal guarantee that gave the 200,000, a personal financial statement that equaled $200,000 or $250,000 or whatever the number needs to be, to do that, is that just the faster path is to go straight to where you are? Because what I've done
Um,
is seasoned account. I've seasoned an account for about 6 months. So I'd had like 6 months of saying like I didn't put it in yesterday, so I've tried to season an account. But if
mhm.
you're saying even if you season an account, you would still need to do this. Should I just go and just start right here and just make it faster?
Um, is you're applying for your first license, right? Initial.
Yes,
Are you a sole proprietor or are you registered as a LLC or
as a sole member LLC.
sole member LLC? So you will have to provide the financial statement in your organization name. So you will
Hmm.
have to fill out the LLC. So we will need a review in the LLC.
Okay.
So your review or audit will have to be in the LLC, but let's say, you only have 100,000 in your LLC and you want to make up the difference with your personal, you can do that. You'll have to fill this out and get it notarized, the personal financial statement with the guarantee agreement, to make up the
Hmm.
difference. And if you
Okay.
haven't done this yet with your CPA, make sure that you talk with them about it and say, this is what I want to do. And your CPA should say, okay, so if you got this much in your LLC and you want to put this much from your personal financial statement towards it for the initial license, he should be able to figure out what that guarantee agreement's going to be. Um, or you can wait for us to tell you what we're going to need for the guarantee. But it might be faster if you work with your CPA on that. And
Hmm.
that way it's just ready to go when you submit your application. And then in the future, when you submit your renewal, your business grew, you have more money in the LLC, you won't have to do the personal financial statement anymore.
Okay.
Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
I hear what you're saying. Why do you need a reviewed statement? But that's just written hard, fast rule in our statute that every entity must provide a reviewed or audited financial statement based on the financial or the monetary limit requested. And so there's no way around getting that by just providing a personal financial statement.
No problem.
Did you have any other questions? Okay, so this you'll see this worksheet in the license resource packet. We do not need this, so this is just for you, and it tells you how we calculate it. Okay, so this is more uh, it kind of goes over the formulas and explains it for you. You do not need to fill out that page. It's not an application requirement. And this here is just a checklist to help ensure that you have everything you need for the application. Um, oh, and I did forget to say something about the experience. So let's say that you're applying for the $1 million monetary limit and you only have you're going to have to show that you have experience in that size project. Okay. So if you're going to be requesting a monetary limit of $1 million, make sure that on your experience sheet, you show that you have work in projects of that size. You have to have that experience because the board will review it. And if they don't see that you have the experience in those larger projects, they are going to change the monetary limit. Okay. You may not get the limit that you are requesting, and you may not get the classification that you're requesting based on experience. So keep that in mind when you're filling out your application. If you're applying for a BC-A and a monetary limit of $3 million, but all you do is build swimming pools and backyard landscaping or improvements for projects around $1 million, they're going to look at that and they're going to possibly change your classification because it's not ground up to just a BC-21 and or whatever the subcategories are of the classifications, and a lower monetary limit, maybe 1.5 million, because you did not list the experience in the higher limit range. It's kind of like, but you can increase it once you do gain the experience. So that is something that will happen. And then when requesting the classifications, let me move this over here.
As
This
well
was also,
clarify, clarify why she's bringing that up. It's not a one-to-one. If you got to show $1 million worth of experience to get $1 million limit. And so if you're doing 100 200,000, you've got experience for $200,000 jobs, that may transpire up to $1 million limit. It just depends on what the experience is and how the board member looks at it. And so I guess what I'm saying is, but if all you're showing is $10,000 worth of projects and you're asking for a $2 million limit, you're probably only going to get at most, probably $75,000 to $100,000 limit. Even though you may qualify by exam or by your financial statement much more, but your experience will limit what the board gives you.
yes. So make sure that you do review the classification outline. And you should find everything here based on your trade that you specialize in. Okay, so if you are applying for either residential, commercial, a small commercial, or a full BC, that includes industrial, or just industrial. Make sure that you're showing ground up experience for those full classifications. If you are more specialized in a specific trade, you will find that in the subcategories, and you can have up to 5. Okay, 5 subcategories. So let's say that you're a roofer, a landscaper, and you build pools. You can have those 3 subcategories, or 4 even, or 5 specifically in those categories with like $1 million monetary limit, and that will cover you for residential and commercial specifically for that trade. Okay, so that is something that you can do. So if you don't have the ground up experience, you can get your specialized trade and these subcategories. You just have to review the classification outline. We have 34 subcategories here in the BCs. And then also we have masonry. Okay, so a masonry classification, that's if you're doing subcontracting work or prime contracting work over $100,000, you have to take a trade exam for that. Okay, you need a classification, and there is a trade exam required for masonry. That's something, be aware of. And then we also have specialties. There's a lot of different specialty classifications that we have here, and we even have some that are not listed. So what we suggest when applying, if you're not sure what classification you're going to be requesting for your license, review this sheet and select the most relevant classification to your trade. And if it's something that we think might be better suited for what you're doing, we will, when we process your application, update it, or the board may review it and be like, actually, this is the trade, this is the classification he needs, right? He or she needs. And they will override the classification and assign you the appropriate one based on your trade. Okay. So don't stress too much if you're not sure, but because we will fix it internally and we'll communicate that with you and be like, this is the trade exam that best suits for you, or the board granted this trade because this is what it is and not this. So there's a lot of classifications to review. So just make sure that you're reviewing this sheet, and they will tell you next to the trade exam trade, if there's an exam required or not. Okay, so just make sure that you review it and be like, do I need to take a test for this one? And if you don't need to take a test for it, just make sure that you are showing the experience for what you're requesting. Okay, and there's a lot here. So just make sure that you review this in its entirety. Are there any questions regarding that? Everything for the contractor license application that is required We did post links to the resources in the chat, so make sure that you save those, and they are also available online. And I think if there's no questions in regards to this, I think we can. Just making sure I checked everything. I think I did. Yeah. Okay. Actually, we'll talk about real quick the board. So the board, a lot of people think that it still takes every other month to get your license. We did have a rule change a couple years ago where we will review your applications prior to the board meeting. And if the board approves it prior to the board meeting, we'll go ahead and issue the license right away. And then it'll be ratified at the next board meeting. We did this to make sure that contractors get their licenses faster instead of having to wait till the next board meeting and then issue them. So it is much faster than it used to be. If you're a returning applicant or trying to reinstate your license, it does go very quickly compared to what it used to be years ago. So it can take up to 4 weeks. It just depends on, if your application was deficient, of course, that is going to slow down the process. But if you submit a complete application and it goes through very quickly, you can get a license as quick as 2 weeks. But if there are deficiencies, it will slow down the process. Okay. The board meetings, sometimes they may ask you to come in for an interview if they have questions on your experience or your limits. Or also, if there's a project that you list that they have questions about, they may ask you to come in for an interview. So make sure that you be prepared for that. And a lot of times they just waive, not coming in for the interview, and they'll just approve the license. And also, if you get, sometimes they may ask about a certain project and they'll want you to fill it out, like a letter of explanation, and send that back. So be prepared for that as well. But other than that, there's more links here. And this is also online, so you can review any of that. And then I'll let Chris take it back over.
All right. I know we have a few people here. If I need to, raise your hand or put or come online. Or anybody looking for specific information for home improvement, limited license electrician LLE or limited license plumber LLP, just let me know. That way we can kind of tailor the remainder of the of our time.
Yeah, I've got just a quick question for clarity here. My experience is predominantly on the remodel side, and I'm looking to get a contractor license and potentially grow into some of that ground up construction. But if I am to pursue the BCA for residential construction, but basically doing that just so I can start bidding jobs of a higher level on the remodel side, so getting over that $25,000 threshold.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make sure I'm not shooting myself in the foot here for the future. But if I pursue BCA with my remodel experience, get a smaller monetary maximum, in excess of 25,000, but not, 2 million or something like that. Is that my starting point? And then that BCA license will still cover me as I grow into ground up construction. And I will then just have to exceed my increase my monetary limit. I won't have to take another test or get additional licensing steps. It'll just be a license increase at that point.
Yeah, and Janine can back me up here, but if you've taken the exam for the residential, the BCA, you've passed it, but the board sees that you don't have that ground up experience to list the straight up BCA, and they provide you something else in one of those BC dash number, but you grow into it. You can always come back with a classification change, showing that you list your experience, and and we'll have your exam score on file, and the board can't at any point in the future, change over that classification to a full up BCA. And then if you want to raise your limit, you submit that limit increase application as well, and you can adjust that license at any point in the future.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So we'll never make you retake a test if you've taken it before, as long as you're staying current in the industry. We've had some folks that may have taken the test 20 years ago, and they went and did something else completely different, and then they're trying to come back, and the board may oftentimes make you go and retest. But as long as you're staying current in the industry, your exam is good.
Thank you.
All right. Again, are there anybody looking specific information about home improvement, LLE or LLP? So not seeing anything. And so are there any specific questions that we can kind of address on the general contractor's license? That way we're not giving you information that you don't need at this time.
Can I get just a little bit of information on the home improvement license?
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we can go to, I think, the next slide. Okay, here we go. So the home improvement license is not fully adopted across the state writ large. It is only active in counties there you can see in the red that use the home improvement license. And so this is Bradley, Davidson, Haywood, Hamilton, Knox, Marion, Robertson, Rutherford, and Shelby. So basically it's your Memphis area, it's your Chattanooga area, it's your Nashville area minus Williamson County, and it's your Knoxville area, or have subscribed to this program. And so what this means, if you're doing residential projects in the range of $3,000 to $24,999, and your projects are in those counties, you must be licensed as a home improvement license contractor. If you have a general contractor's license, you're doing one of those in those counties, you don't need to have both. Your general contractor's license will supersede the home improvement license requirement. And so I just want to kind of make that aware as well, so you don't have to carry both of those. And so the process for home improvement license is not as strenuous as a general contractor's license, but there are some similarities, such as insurance. I think we can go to the next slide and see those are kind of the general requirements. You don't have to submit a financial statement from a CPA. We will just need a minimum of some type of proof of financial responsibility up to $10,000. Most likely, or most commonly, it's a surety bond that most people provide, but you can do a cash bond or a irrevocable letter of credit as well. You can see there we just need the general liability on the insurance to be $100,000, and then the same workers' comp requirements apply. That was described as in the general contractor's part. And so we also need to be proof of registration with the Secretary of State, and things like that. And so if you are doing projects in those counties, in that dollar threshold amount, and you don't have a general contractor's license, you must have a home improvement license. I know that was very quick, but is there anything specific about the home improvement license that you need clarification on?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody any information about the LLE or the LLP? Not seeing anything, so we can kind of go to the end. I think there's one about renewals at the end. I think Janine covered it mostly, but every 2 years you'll need to renew. And so, but the renewal process is much much quicker, a little easier than your initial license. There are things you still have to provide to make sure that your Secretary of State registry is still active. You still had to provide your insurance, a current insurance document. You got to do a financial statement. The parameters of which financial statement changes when you go into renewals. 1.5 million and below, all you need to do is provide a self-prepared financial or a balance sheet. Self-prepared is acceptable. Anything over 1.5 million to include unlimited only requires a compilation report from a CPA. We will still accept a reviewed and audited, but the minimum requirement is a compilation from a CPA. Now, the only other additional requirement that we would need from a renewal is a continuing education requirement. So if you have a residential BCA or a BCA restricted classification on your license and you are licensed after 2009, every 2 years you require 8 hours of continuing education. There is a waiver for that if you are part of the Home Builders, HBAT, the Home Builders Association, and you can show active membership in that association. You can use that to waive the individual continuing education requirements. And we have information on our website of who we have. And so it can't be just anything. It has to go to be one of our certified providers that we have on our website. And so just wanted to highlight that as well. And again, we stress everything to do online, as it will go much faster. And so, are there any questions about renewals? I'm not hearing anything. Is there any? I just opened up the floor for any questions or comments or anything that you have, and we'll stay online for a few more minutes here, but open up the floor for anybody for any other questions. And you can go to our last slide, Janine, just to kind of show our email address. This will go to a centralized email account, but we have access to it, and we will respond with anything that goes to this website or that email address. All right.
Just
last call here. Go ahead, Janine.
Just a reminder, this is recorded and it will be posted on our website under the public meeting information. And we do go over, so you can refer back to this video while you're processing an application if you need to. There's also another webinar that is a lot longer where we did cover the LLE, LLP in depth that you can refer to as well from the June webinar that we did. So, and that is available on our website. So you can go back and refer to that as well if needed in the future. And then we will be having another webinar in the future as well. We'll have it updated probably in a couple weeks. So when that will be, but you can go back and refer to this video on our website probably in the next 48 hours.
All right, thank you. We appreciate everybody joining in today and hope it was informative. And again, if there's any specific feedback you want to provide us as well, you can provide it through this email address as well, or this chat box will still stay open for a while and you can provide that as well. But we really appreciate you being here today and hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you very much.